All right, so we're going to talk here about a very simple economics model, but a very useful one called the Production Possibilities Frontier. So the PPF is a two-dimensional model that shows us what can be produced under some basic assumptions. So we're only going to consider two goods. We're going to be at a fixed point in time, and then we're going to say that all resources are fully efficiently deployed. Now, if we're looking at this within the context of the entire economy, this would be on a macroeconomic level. We could also look at this within the context of a business. So let's say, for example, you're a bakery and you're considering how many loaves of bread I can make versus how many cakes, for example. It's a pretty useful introductory model because it does show us the concepts of scarcity, opportunity cost, and growth and benefits of trade. So let's get into it a bit with a very basic example here. Let's assume that we have an economy, and if it devoted all of its resources to producing hats, could produce 100,000 and produce 0 drones. If, on the other hand, all they did was produce drones, they could produce 100 with 0 hats. I've also got some various production points. Production A here, where they could produce 50,000 hats and 50 drones. Production point B, where they could do 25,000 hats and 75 drones. Couple of points of note here. Point D is inside the boundary of the production possibilities frontier. So while it is a feasible production point, it also represents inefficiency. And so we would not want to be there as an economy or as a business. Now, when could that happen? Well, think about times where all your resources are not deployed efficiently. An example that comes to mind in the not so distant past was during COVID. We were on lockdown in various stages, so resources weren't deployed. We weren't producing as much. Another potential option here is point C. And point C, with our current level of resources, is not sustainable, okay? We may be able in short bursts to get to C, maybe run double shifts in a factory for a while, but eventually machines need to cool down, workers need to rest, and so C is not sustainable presently. But any point on this curve or line is what we call productive efficient, meaning we are getting the maximum amount of production we can. Now, there's going to be a specific point on the curve, if we're talking about the macroeconomy, where we're allocating efficiency. In other words, we're producing the exact mix that the public wants. And how do we determine that point? Well, we determine it based on, drum roll, market forces. The market will decide. So if there's a shift in preferences towards hats, you will start to see shortages form in the markets, prices increasing, and that would send a signal to shift production to hats. How does this show us opportunity cost? Well, pretty straightforward. So let's say we're at point A, we decide to move to point B. So when we go from A to B, we gain 25 drones. Well, what's our next best alternative? Well, it was to reduce at point A and produce 50,000 hats. What are we giving up? The production of 25,000 hats, because when we move from A to B, we gain 25 drones, we give up 25,000 hats. This is also a very useful tool for looking at the concept of comparative advantage. Okay, so what's comparative advantage? Comparative advantage is a situation where one economic actor is able to produce at a lower opportunity cost than another. And so if we think about it in terms of production, we can look at, for example, this firm, or if we think about this as an economy, every time we shift from producing hats to drones, every additional drone results in a reduction of 1,000 hats. How did I get that number? Pretty straightforward. I just keep the line straight to make it simple, but I take 100,000 here, divide it by 100, okay? Whatever we're going to shift our production to is what we're going to want in the denominator, and that tells us that we give up 1,000 hats every time we make a drone, okay? And if you look at the math here, this is pretty straightforward. How would this be useful? Well, if we can find a trade partner that has a lower opportunity cost than we do in that, then we could produce drones and then trade those drones to them for hats that they're able to produce more efficiently, and then both parties will be made better off through that process. Okay, so that was a little bit on the production possibilities frontier and the concepts and really how it's used to show opportunity cost more than anything, but also helps us to understand a bit about comparative advantage. Okay.